A lot of people who wanted to be here are in chemistry lab, and that stinks. And typically, if there aren't very many people in the middle, I would make you move. But like, it's the week after midterms, and I'm tired, and y'all are tired, so you can stay where you are. So if I'm not looking to the sides of the room, sorry. I'm just going to pretend you're all sort of sitting right here. How many of you are here for extra credit? Cool. I hope that you enjoy your hour. How many of you have been to a Harding Hack before? The majority of you, which is really good. How many of you were at the last one? Okay, for those of you who are at the last one, you're going to hear some things repeated, which hopefully is beneficial to you. But today's Harding Hack is a very general, broad stroke. I have 7 slides in this PowerPoint, including this one. So the other 6 slides, I could talk about each of them for an hour. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. But in helping students learn how to learn, especially learn how to learn the most effectively and efficiently as possible, is kind of a difficult task because each and every one of you is very different and unique. I'm Stephanie O'Brien, by the way. I'm the Director of Academic Resources. I work in the Center for Student Success, and I'm also the Assistant Director of Stampede. So if you're a freshman, I saw you this summer, which is really good. But all of you are so different, each and every one of you. I'm going to just eyeball that there are probably 70 to 80, maybe 90 people in this room. I could be way off. Guessing is not my strength. But some of you, school comes really easily. And you're one of those students who is here for the extra credit, even though you have A's in all of your classes. And you just like a whole lot of cushion, even though you don't need cushion. And some of you are sitting in your classes and you're looking on Pipeline, if you even log into Pipeline, and your midterm grades aren't that great. And you may have been an A student in high school or a BC student in high school, but you're on the struggle bus in college. And so you have to be here and you feel like you need every point you can possibly have. And if that's you, I'm glad that you're here as well. I'm glad that you're all here. But each of you is different, whether academics is your love language, or if you truly hate, loathe, and despise everything about Harding that is academic and you're just here for the social life, I get it. But all of you have strengths that you can use in the world of academia. One of my favorite things that I get to do and have done in the past is work with Upward Bound, which serves first-generation, low-income high school students in the community in White and Woodruff counties. And these students are students whose parents never went to college, for the most part. They don't have a lot of the resources necessarily that a lot of you may have grown up just accustomed to, and may have been just your default setting. And they don't think that they can do school, let alone do college. And it's so fun to explore and figure out what their strengths are. That includes their disposition and their personality, and not just their ability to read or do math problems or interpret test questions in an accurate way. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good student. So, again, broad stroke, because you're all very different and you're all very unique, and I'm hoping that I say 1 or 2 things that really speak to you, and you're like, huh, that would be really helpful to me. In the same way, I'm assuming all of you have been in a relationship of some kind, maybe not romantic necessarily, but platonic. You have relationships with your family and your friends, maybe a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you know that you speak different languages, and you know that you all need different things. And guys and girls are very, very different. The needs are different. That is so true also of the way God designed our brains, and the way we take in information, and the way things communicate to us. And that, from the very beginning, that level of self-awareness is something I want you all to know, and to learn how to learn, and to learn about yourself. I'm also a licensed therapist, and I enjoy being a counselor a lot, but half of the problem with students who struggle in school is simply that they don't know themselves. They don't know what kind of learner they are, they don't know their strengths, they also don't know their weaknesses, and there are so many different people, often including myself, who say, hey, you should do this, 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 and this, and we tell you exactly what you need to do to get an A in the class. But the problem is that might not work for you. Sitting there and reading a textbook, from guessing 90% of you, is not going to be how you learn information at all. And you're going to look and you're going to open up a textbook and you're going to be like, flip through ahead to see how many pages you have left to read. It's going to be like 40 pages, and you're going to see all of that really fine black print on those white pages, probably not any pictures. Maybe if you're lucky there are a few, and then your brain is just going to shut down. And you may even start to try to read it, but you realize after 4 or 5 pages, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, for some of you 4 or 5 sentences or words, that your brain turns off and you're done and you don't recall anything that you've read because it doesn't work for you. And some of you may go into class and you'll sit there. And you could be in an auditorium like this one, or you could be in a room in the Gamus. It's a little bit smaller and more intimate, and the teacher's talking, and all of a sudden 20 minutes goes by, or it may feel like 20 and it's only 2, and you don't remember anything that they just said. Because when people are talking to you, kind of like I'm talking to you right now, so you don't even know that I'm talking to you because you're already zoned out. People are talking to you and you just can't get that information in. Or if you're in a lab of some kind, and you're trying to do everything, and you just need someone to break it down and tell you what you need to learn because actively doing it isn't going to help you that much. You're all different. And it makes it very hard to tell you how to learn and to tell you what you need to do. So before we even get there, I want to talk a little bit about your self-awareness and knowing yourself. Because here's the thing. Each and every one of you, and I've said this at almost every Harding Hack, each and every one of you is in this room because you're a student at Harding University. Therefore, I'm going to assume that you want a college degree, and I'm also going to assume that you want a college degree because you want a job, because you want to use your gifts and talents, because you want to make money and support yourself and not live at home, because you want to be able to provide for your family or your loved ones, or because you want to live life and be able to have the freedom of travel, any of these reasons, or if you want to give, any of these reasons, and all of them are really good, but you need a college degree to do it. But your learning and your soaking in knowledge and your ability to retain stuff isn't done when you walk across that Benson stage. I've walked across that Benson stage to receive a diploma 3 times, and I am not done learning. I have 3 degrees, and so I would wish with all my heart that I didn't have to be assessed and tested still on what I'm able to think about and retain and know. But every single day at my job, or every single day as a counselor, or the director of Stampede, or all these other things that I do, even as a club sponsor, I'm having to learn things. Learn students' names, learn information, learn about different assessments, learn different policies and procedures and laws and codes of ethics. I'm constantly having to learn, even though I'm not sitting in a classroom. And so one of the most depressing things ever to me is when my friends, who I graduated with in undergrad or grad school, are out in the real world and they still have to go home every night and study things for work. And you think that you're going to be done with that when you're done with undergrad, but that isn't the case. No matter what your job is going to be, you're going to have to learn stuff. And learning takes time. And I think that you all, I'm hoping, are old enough to realize how valuable time is. It's precious. And to me, I mean, I'm 28, but it is so precious to me. And it's something that I don't want to waste. And so the more you can learn how you learn, the more effectively and efficiently you'll be able to study. And there's no better way to sort of learn that about yourself, to learn what speaks to you, and to also learn what you just don't need to do because it wastes your time. And time, again, is way too valuable to waste. So we're going to ask ourselves some questions as we go through here. We're going to talk about really how you learn best, and also how you learn best. And what are your pitfalls when it comes to academics, or just your pitfalls in life in general? What motivates you? If you don't care enough about what you're doing, it's not going to matter what your goals are, and why you want to succeed. All of these things are so important to simply learning. Now, general learning styles. Again, when I'm working with students in my office, or when my academic counselors are working, or my interns are working with students, and they're trying to figure out how they learn, there are assessments that we'll give you. So if you truly have no idea how you learn, you can come to the Center for Student Success and take an assessment, and we'll cover that with you. But then in giving the tips and the tricks that go with that, it's much like giving a prescription if you're a pharmacist. And so my pharmacist and my doctor before have given me prescriptions for things that really didn't help me out. And did they help out most people who had that, like sickness or that illness? Yeah. But because I'm so unique and I'm different, just like you all are, they didn't work for me. And that's so true of learning styles. So just bear that in mind as I'm about to talk about these things. There are the three most common. I'm assuming that most of you have learned about learning styles or heard about them. Some of your high school teachers may discuss them. You've definitely heard of them if you come to the Harding Hacks. But they can be very broad, or they can be really specific. And so if you are a visual person, it's helpful to you that I have a PowerPoint up there because it gives you a visual anchor. It doesn't help you that I didn't put in graphics or video clips or little like GIFs, however you want to say it. That doesn't help you, but the fact that there's something on the screen to look at is beneficial to you. And then for those of you who are auditory, you could care less what's on the screen. You're simply listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. And for those of you who are kinesthetic, well, you're not even paying attention to me because I'm not engaging you in any way, and it's very difficult. But if you are a visual learner, and stereotypically, most men are visual learners. They remember what they see very much. And if you're a visual learner, all people, women are visual learners, I'm a visual learner in many ways, you're going to remember things that you see. Therefore, when you are studying and when you are learning, you have to make things as visually appealing as possible so that you remember them. It is not uncommon for me to encourage my students to highlight all of their textbooks in different colors, or if they have to print things, to print them on different color paper, or use different color ink. And if you don't want to use different colored ink because it's actually kind of expensive, to just chunk it up and use different fonts for different things, because it will be visually stimulating to you and it's going to be different than the norm. I would also, if you're a visual person and you have to print stuff out to read, change the size of the font. I don't know who decided that in order for something to be an academic piece of literature, it had to be size 12 font, Times New Roman, black ink, white paper, either single-spaced or double-spaced. But that person, I don't like very much, because most of you, if you were to see something, and if I were to hand you a 12-page paper, if it was like that, your brain would just turn off. Because there's this little voice in your brain that says, that's boring, nope. And it's just going to go and focus on other things. There's nothing visually catching about that. If you were to walk in an elementary school, everything catches your eye. The letters are really big and colorful. There are pictures, and it's happy. And you can learn so much when you walk into an elementary school about bugs and volcanoes and all this really cool stuff, because they see it, and they interact with it, and they do stuff with it. So I don't know why in high school and college they decided that we're too cool for that, but it's really detrimental, and it's really hurtful. And I have worked with doctors and pharmacy students and PT students and PA students and speech path students, all these people getting doctoral and master level degrees, and I make them color things and color coordinate things, and it helps them remember it. And so if you know that you remember colors of stuff, or if you remember pictures, don't ever feel like you are dumbing yourself down by making it look sort of like an elementary school project, because it's actually going to be really helpful for you. There are also countless YouTube videos and Khan Academy videos which are free and at your fingertips. And if you're studying history or political science or something that you find unparalleledly boring, then look up a YouTube video and see an enactment of a war, or watch something that explains something in a visual way where you can actually understand it. When people try to explain to me science, whether it be biology or chemistry or physics, if they were just to try to explain to me the process of cells or any kind of thing that happens in physics, like I don't speak science, I speak social science, not science. That is not happening. And I'm not stupid, it's just not how my brain works. But if I were to watch a YouTube video, I'm going to be able to get it all. As a therapist, I have to really understand a lot that happens in the brain. I'd have to know about serotonin and dopamine and reuptake inhibitors and all of these things, because that's a part of depression and it's a part of anxiety and I have to know physiologically what's going on with my clients. I need to, and that's science. Did I learn those things from a textbook? Nope. Was I supposed to? Absolutely. But what I did was get on YouTube and just watch videos of people explaining them to me. And is that me being lazy? No, that's called me being resourceful and knowing what I need to learn it. Okay? You can do that. If you are an auditory person and you need to hear things, that often means you might need to speak it. But it's okay to, if you ask your professors, to record lectures or to still go to YouTube videos and have people record it. If you're an auditory person, you're really going to benefit by being in college because most professors, including myself, my government students, we just get up there and we talk. And we tell you information and we just expect you to know it and then to fill in a Scantron about it. And is that fair to everyone? Absolutely not. But if you're an auditory person, just hearing something, you're going to remember what they said. And you're going to remember the tone of voice, and you're going to remember different things that were emphasized, and you're going to be able to close your eyes and regurgitate word for word what your professor said, or what your friend said, or lo and behold, what your boyfriend said. You're just going to remember conversations. And that's good. Use that as a strength. If I'm working with an auditory student, especially if they're in the classes that are really difficult for them, you typically want to study with someone else so you can hear them explain it. But if you're really, really shy and timid, I get that too. And so utilize your smartphone or utilize a recorder and talk out loud and explain it to yourself and then go back and listen to it. And when you go back and listen, that isn't weird, by the way. It's weird if you're playing back your voice at 2 in the morning and your roommate doesn't like it, but it isn't weird if that's how you're going to get the information in, if you explain it to someone. Auditory learners are really good teachers. So if you have to study it and listen to yourself say it until you can teach it to someone else, do that. If you have a class that you're really struggling in and you don't have classmates you can study with, and we have a tutor for that, you can come to the Center for Student Success, apply to get a tutor because it is free, and you can hear them explain it to you, and then you can re-explain it to them. There are 10,000 things you can do, but oftentimes recording your voice and listening it play back to you is going to actually be beneficial. Another type of learner, and this is the hardest for college, is the kinesthetic learners, because you have to actively be engaged and be doing it. And there aren't many times, unless you are in the sciences in many ways, or theater in some ways, or art, that you're doing this stuff. And that can be very tedious. And you may be a student who sits there and you just tap all the time, or your brain just goes, it's gone. And you cannot focus. And kinesthetic learners have all of this energy going on all around them all the time. And when they're sitting in a classroom, especially a Tuesday, Thursday class, and they're expected to just sit there still and be quiet and not do anything. It's like a personal version of hell for them. And they're expected to learn stuff. And that is hard. And so if that is you, I would encourage you to do what I tell a lot of my kinesthetic students to do and get like ticky-tacky, or get a fidget, or get a fidget cube, or just something where you can do something with your hands while you're studying. The whole pin clicking thing, a lot of you may do that, and it probably drives the people around you crazy, because for the auditory learner, you are distracting them all the time, and that isn't fair. But your foot tapping and anything that makes sound you can't do, and you frustrate people around you, or your teachers may constantly tell you to stop, but you don't even notice that you're doing it. So get little quiet things, so that all of this energy that you have goes into something in your hand, and you can use the rest of your awareness to actually pay attention to what is on the board and what's being said. And it isn't weird to do that. There are students right now in the College of Pharmacy getting their PharmD, their pharmacy doctorate, who sit in class with Silly Putty because they know it's helpful to them. Now, if you're going to like play with it, don't do that. That's distracting, and it will distract you and hurt you. But if you just need something to do with your hands, do that. Kinesthetic learners also, who have all of this sort of almost ADD kind of mentality, if you just sit there in your seat and you push your thumbs down as much as you can and just exert as much energy as you can, it will actually never, ever, ever, ever Try to sit in your bed and study, because that isn't going to work for you. You need to be up and walking around and talking it out and having your brain flow and using some kind of energy to study. You can sit on a treadmill and read if you need to. You can dribble a basketball. You can walk around. You can take a walk. But if you just sit there and expect your body to actually retain information when you physically have to be moving and engaged, it's going to be a waste of your time. And you may eventually soak up 50, 70% of what you're trying to learn, but you could spend half the time that you're spending simply by walking around and actually soak up a whole lot more information. If you chew gum, that's really helpful. Kinesthetic learners really make high associations with things. So if you've ever heard a song and it reminds you of a memory, or if you've ever smelled something and it reminds you of something, or tasted something and it brings something back, part of you is a kinesthetic learner because you're making associations. If you ever have a digit code into something and you don't know the actual numbers, you just know how the code goes, that's a kinesthetic learner. I know the code to my best friend's house just because of the way it moves. And I know phone numbers just by the way they move, but I don't know the actual numbers unless I have to stop and think about it and see where the numbers are. That's a kinesthetic thing. You can always use that to your advantage. And so if you know how to learn, you're going to know how to save time. And here's the thing, and I talk about time a lot, but it's because time's truly so important. What you all, as freshmen and sophomores, maybe a few juniors or seniors in here, I need you to know about time and about college is that you do not ever want to get to a place where you live to work. That is a sad and miserable existence. You want to simply work so that you can live. That's what your life is about, and that's what your gift from God is about. Is work going to be a huge part of your life? Absolutely. 40 hours a week or more is significant. It's so significant. But if you are spending all of that precious time trying to just study and work and you're wasting it, that isn't a way to live. And so it is truly super important. Some of you are really good at learning with others. And there are certain types of people that don't learn very well by themselves. And they need to talk it out with someone else. I'm the worst at learning things by myself. I think it's because I'm fiercely stubborn and competitive, and so I like to study in groups for that ironing sharpens iron sort of thing. But some people, if you put them in a group, they're just going to shut down, and they can't learn from other people. And some people are capable of both. If you learn really well in groups, you truly need to encourage that in your classes and make your own study groups. If you have SI in your class, you need to go to those. And you will always need to find ways to study with other people. And if you can't do that, then get a tutor so you at least have someone. If you know, everyone tells you, hey, you need to go to SI, but that kind of thing gives you anxiety to where even if you're in SI sessions, you're going to shut down and you're not going to pay attention, then don't go to those. Truly, and I'm the director of that, and I'm telling you not to go if it actually isn't beneficial to you. But some of you, even though you would love to study with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or you would love to study with your friends or with your classmates, but you know you're just going to get sidetracked, don't feel like you have to sacrifice your time just to study with your friends, even though it's not beneficial to you, when you could study for an hour by yourself and get a whole lot more done and then hang out with your friends later. But one of the things that students don't really think about often in my office is if they do better with groups or if they do better by themselves. That's something that you need to learn to be aware of. And so if it's not something that you're cognizant of now, think about it when you're studying in the future and think about which is better for you and then play off of that. There's also written and oral expressive. Some people remember everything that they write. And in order to think out loud, they have to write it out. And in order to express even their emotions or their deep critical thoughts, they have to hand write it. Some people can do it by typing, but studies show it's just not as effective. But for some of you, if your professor gives you notes, you don't think that you have to take notes. And a lot of professors give out their notes thinking that they're being really helpful. And that isn't always the case, not if you're written expressive. Because you feel like you shouldn't have to take notes, even though in the process of writing that, you're going to remember it forever. And that's good. Pay attention to what you remember. If you think about things in the past from high school, that you can still remember how they happened, how did you learn that stuff? It is incredible to me how many songs people remember. If you remember the lyrics to a song that you haven't heard in decades, well, for you all it wouldn't be decades, but I remember songs from when I was 8 years old, even though I haven't heard them in 20 years. And that's because I am an auditory person in many ways. I can still remember singing the words, and it is a kinesthetic thing, and so you remember those things. And play off of that strength, okay? So if you're an oral expressive person, that means you need to talk it out all the time. So again, if you don't have anyone to talk it out with, you're just going to remember everything that you say, and you're going to remember trying to explain it to someone. Oral expressive people are often auditory people, and you just need to teach it. Teach it to a stuffed animal. Call your mom and say, hey, let me explain this to you. Do that. It does, I mean, it might seem weird, but it's okay to think outside the box when it comes to your learning, because you're paying a really high amount for all the information that's thrown at you. And so you have to know that. And if you really are curious about what your learning style is, you're definitely welcome to come to the center and for us to assess you on those. But even when you know everything about yourself, and you know your learning style, and you know what sort of things work for you in studying and how to master information, and you are fully self-aware. I have a lot of students that have reached that place and still manage to just crumble academically. And it's because of these other things that they get blindsided by. Your phone. I am like BFF with my phone. It is never typically more than 10 feet away from me. As a counselor, I always have to have it close by, ethically. And I am sidetracked by that thing all the time. If I hear it vibrate, automatically, no matter what is going on in front of me, my mind goes to, I wonder who that is. I wonder if it's important. Is it work or is it personal? Is it something that's urgent? Is it not? Is everything okay? And I totally, even if it's just for 5 seconds, lost track of what's happening in front of me. And so if I'm studying something and my phone is going off all the time, you may think that you're actually studying for an hour, when in reality only maybe 15 minutes of that were you actually focused, because the rest of the time you were either on your phone or you were thinking about being on your phone, and that isn't helpful. And so if I am in a meeting or a session, or if I'm somewhere where I know I need to be 100% focused and I cannot be sidetracked, or I don't want to be sidetracked, I put the phone away. And so when I was studying for my NCE, my board exam for counseling, my phone wasn't out, because that's kind of a big deal. And I knew that I could not constantly be derailing myself. Does that require some discipline? Yeah. But is it worth it? Absolutely. The internet in general, you will get on the computer to write a paper, and you have every intention of writing a paper. But then somehow, YouTube pops up, or Instagram, or Facebook, or Flickr, or any other kind of website pops up, just because it's there and it's your default setting. And before you knew it, that 2 hours that you had carved out to just knock out your 2 or 3 page paper is gone. And you may or may not have a first paragraph, but after that, you know nothing academically, but you could tell you what your cousins did over the weekend and what your best friends liked on Twitter and all the cool stuff on Instagram. And it's over. Or you could go back and watch 90 pop videos, music videos, and enjoy it for hours, but you weren't productive in any way. And that's hard, and that's going to get you. Netflix. Netflix didn't exist when I was an undergrad at like a very popular, widespread level. Praise the Lord, because I may not have 3 degrees if it did. And that's a struggle. And it's very easy after a long, hard week to just crawl into bed and turn on some Gilmore Girls or some Grays and be done. Guys, you don't know what I'm talking about, but like girls, you do, I'm thinking. But Netflix, you're going to have some boundaries there and some limits. Take away your password. You're going to have to do something, because you aren't here in college to just stay in your uncomfortable twin-sized dorm bed and watch movies forever. Is it okay sometimes? Yeah. but not all the time. And you need to be aware, like journal how much time you spend on Netflix or on Hulu or just watching regular TV, and it might really surprise you. Other pitfalls, even if you're perfectly self-aware and you know what you're doing, is a general lack of time management. This is probably the #1 cutter, slicer of grades, is students who simply don't know how to manage their time. And that one's hard, and we've already had a Harding Hack on it, but if that's something you really struggle with, come see us in the center and we will help you with that. A lot of students simply aren't organized. You do not know when you have assignments due. You are not responsible, really. You don't know where stuff is kept, you don't know where to find your notes, you don't remember where to find your syllabi or where things say, what the rules are, and so you just turn in stuff and you're kind of guessing what's required, or you just don't turn something in at all because you forgot. And that has to change. If you're sort of a slob academically and you don't stay on top of your stuff, that is truly a life skill. And it doesn't matter to me if you don't plan to go to graduate school, where you definitely have to be a little bit more organized. In your job, whatever career you want, in a family, as a single person, you have to be organized in some way. And so it's far better for you to develop those skills now than it is later when the consequences are really a lot steeper. Some of you truly don't know how to take notes. You've been in school for 13 or 14 years of your life, yet you've never really been challenged. And you've never actually had to write down and take down what the professor is saying. Some of you have been homeschooled your whole life, and so you've never sat in a classroom with 50 other people with the professor just talking to you for 50 minutes. And that's hard. And you don't know how to take what they're saying and write down what is important. And if that is a struggle of yours, I could talk again for an hour just on that point alone. But if that's a struggle with yours and you know it is a hindrance to you academically, don't be so fearful or so prideful to not get help with that. And again, come to the center and ask for that. Some of you simply are too fearful or timid or prideful, or you just don't care enough to utilize all of the resources available to you. You won't go to your professor. You won't get tutoring. You won't go to SI sessions. You won't ask your classmates. That doesn't really make sense to me all the time if you truly cared about it. Some of you lack this little thing called common sense. Common sense, I've learned, is not so common. And it is not a flower that grows in everyone's garden, as my mom says. There's nothing common about common sense. And that's hard. But to me, some common sense things are, you should probably go to class. Some of you, it just kills me. You'll come to my office or one of my interns' office, and you'll have a D, and you'll be shocked about how you have a D in this class. And we do a little bit of digging, because that's what counselors do, and we realize you're not even going to class. Ugh, it hurts. That kills me. If you are not doing the common sense things, like taking notes, or like going to class, or turning in your homework, most homework at Harding, not all, there are exceptions, but most homework, we give that to you as like buffer points, because tests are hard, and some people really suck at taking tests, but homework is like your cushion, and we're like, here, we love you, here are your easy points, do it at home, on your free time, open book, open internet, open print, and turn it in, and you still don't do it. Don't do that. Don't make those stupid, silly mistakes, because on the professor's side, you're going to lose a lot of grace if you're not at least doing the bare minimum, and those things are the bare minimum. Lack of motivation is huge. I'm going to get to that. And overall wellness. You may want to do your best. You may want and do all the common sense things. You may know how to manage your time. You may know yourself. You may know your learning style. But at the end of the day, you're spiritually or emotionally or physically just not well enough to handle it. Or any combination of those three. And I see that all the time in my office. Students who are exceptional. They have all the potential in the world to not just do well, but to truly thrive. And I love it. However, they're really depressed. or they're anxious, or they're physically sick, or they're overwhelmed, or they've come to Harding and expected this like post-camp high spiritually, but they feel spiritually just suffocated here. And I can relate to all three of those. I've been in college sick and depressed and spiritually struggling, for sure. And the last thing that you can focus on when you are physically hurt or emotionally sabotaged or spiritually drained is school. And that's okay, for sure. There are things, and again, resources that can help you with all three of those, though. And so if all the way up until this point you're like, you know what, I know how to be a good student, but now I'm speaking some truth to you and it hurts a little, I'd love for you to talk to me about those things, because those are more important than school. Your physical wellness, your mental and emotional wellness, and your spiritual wellness for sure trump academics. And I'm the director of academic resources, and I'm telling you that. Those are a big deal. In fact, the next Harding Hack, the whole hour is spent talking about this stuff, your overall holistic well-being. Because if you're not well, there's no way your grades are going to be well. And so I'm going to get a little preachy about that in a few weeks. When it comes to your motivation, though, we could tell you all these things you need to do all day long. But if you don't want it enough, it does not matter. Okay, so for me, to be vulnerable, I absolutely know everything I would need to do to be physically fit and in shape, to be quite honest. I mean, there's a recipe there, like eat well, exercise, sleep, drink a ton of water, like I know it. It's kind of common sense stuff. But do I want it enough to actually do it? The same is true of your grades. You know what you got to do well in school. You know that. And you are learning a lot about yourself to be able to do that even more effectively and efficiently. And you know all of these shoulds. And I really don't like that word. It just kind of makes me uncomfortable. Should, because it's just sort of a shame giver. But you know all of these things that you should be doing. But if you don't know why you're here, and if it was sort of just the next natural step after high school, and you're just now here, and you don't know what you want to do with your life, or you haven't found your passion, and you haven't discovered your bliss, and you're sort of just doing it to go through the motions, it's going to get harder and harder and harder, and you're going to get burnt out. Some of you are freshmen in your 8th week of school, and you're feeling burnt out, and you're like, oh my word, I have years left of this. Some of you are a little bit further along in your progression of college, and you're still not sure what you need to do with your life, or what you're being called to do, or what you want to do. And that's difficult to be motivated when you can't even answer why you're doing it. I struggle with this when I'm working with pharmacy or PT students, or all these grad allied health professional students, because they're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I only sleeping 4 hours a night? And if you are not anchored in the truth of what you want, it's not going to work out very well. And if you don't have goals, your goal doesn't have to be to get a 4.0. That, for a lot of you, might not truly be realistic, and that's okay. But if your goals aren't realistic, and they aren't measurable, like you can't determine if you're succeeding or making progress toward them, that's not very good. If you don't have people holding you accountable who can encourage you and also edify you a little, build you up and challenge you, that's going to be hard to go through all 4 or 5 years or longer if you're doing post-grad work. That's difficult to do it alone. You have to, at the end of the day, no matter how self-aware you are, no matter how much you have chiseled down what works for you in your learning styles, no matter how many boundaries you set with those little things that take up your time and your energy and your brain focus, if you're not disciplined, if you don't practice discernment and choose what's best for you, sometimes you're going to have to say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get a C or a B on this because this relationship is more important and I need to have this conversation right now. Or my physical health is more important and I really just need to go to bed. And that's okay. But you have to be discerning. You can't always just say, well, my emotional health's more fun, so I always need to be with my friends. Like, oh, tell that to your parents when they're screaming at you for getting all Fs. You're going to have to be discerning there. And to, again, know yourself and know when to give and when to take a little bit. And it all is going to boil down to the decisions you make. But me as the director of academic resources, or as a counselor, or as a professor for some of you, if you're in my class, I only have a little bit of control and can only do a little bit to influence your grades. The same is true of your advisors and your professors and your club sponsors and your friends and your parents and your significant other, because it boils down to you and what you're willing to do and the decisions you're willing to make and how much you're really willing to put into your education. And not just your education here at Harding, but how much you're wanting to learn in life. And that's really significant, and it's important to do those kind of things, for sure. It is okay to be weird, by the way. I've been weird for 28 years, and that is good. If you know that the traditional things don't work for you, and you struggle to just sit and listen and take notes, and so you have to do something kind of weird, like chew a different flavor gum for each class. That way you make the associations with the flavors. Or write it in a different color pen for different classes so you make the associations with the pen. Or you have to record yourself talking out your notes all the time and go back and listen to your own voice, which, let's be weird, is kind of uncomfortable. That's okay. It's okay to be weird and to think outside the box if it's going to save you. It's also okay to ask for help. The professors here are really awesome. They're really nice and they're really kind for the most part, and for the most part really encouraging. And for the most part, we really want you to succeed. So don't be so scared to not go in during those office hours and say, you know what, I'm struggling, I don't understand this. It isn't an insult to the professor. We want you to understand our information and we want you to get it. So take advantage of that, and if you don't, that's one of those common sense things that you're making a poor decision on. Also take advantage of the Center for Student Success if that's a need that you have. Getting tutoring is not an embarrassing thing. It's not even always a remedial thing. There are students getting tutoring who have really high Bs who just want to get a little bit of help to make sure they solidify that A, even if it's a low A. That's okay. It's okay to walk in the room and go to SI sessions. Everyone in there is also in there, so they're not going to judge you. And those also aren't remedial. It's okay to go in and get academic counseling because you realize you don't know how to do college. That's okay. A lot of you never learned how to do college. To be quite honest, I don't even feel like I know how to do college. And it's kind of my job. And that's all right. Even outside the academic side, spiritually, emotionally, if you're not doing okay, there are resources for you. So take advantage of those all of the time, because it isn't just about right now. Although right now you're spending, or your parents are spending, or the government is currently spending, and you'll later spend thousands of dollars to be here and to learn. So do those things, pay attention, and you're getting out early today. Happy Tuesday.